Hey everyone, welcome to the Game Week 25 preview video. And this is a late one. And the reason is there were so many decisions. And even just a few minutes ago, I've decided to make a big move that will play a big part in the rest of this Serie A Fantasy season. If you're liking what's happening, please like and subscribe and let me know if you agree with the move that I've just made. I have officially activated my second wildcard button, chip, sorry, meaning that I'm going to be making a large amount of transfers without the cost of any points. Check out Chip's video if you need to be refreshed on what the wild card or shuffle means and best times to use it. And honestly, this kind of goes with one of my suggestions on best times to use it, but it's not in preparation of the all-in or a double game week. But I just think this game, it plays definitely different than the Premier League game, and I think I need to make this decision. I had a lot of players that have been fringe starters recently, and they are playing tough teams this week. So I was worried that after a big jump last week, where I am almost in the top 300 again, I jumped about like 190 spots or something. But I want to keep that momentum going, and I'm going to make this move with 13 game weeks left. And this one's obviously being set up for 25 right away. So there'll be about 12 that I'll have to make do without the large amount of transfers being made. But I think it will be okay. And I'll list some reasons why I'm doing things and some things that I am a little concerned about as well going forward with this. Overall, I only kept, I think, four players. Mira Rui, Karsdorp, Avlavic, and Shenzi are the players that I kept. Again, goes against what I normally do, keeping an expensive keeper. Just Juve's fixtures coming up are so good aside from this week's, to be truly honest. They got Atalanta this week, which is going to be tough, but then you got Torino, Empoli, Spezia, Sampdoria, and Salernitana. And then after that Inter Milan game, the next week you got Cagliari and Bologna, Sassuolo, Venezia, and Genoa. I think 3 Juventus players just as must-have right now. You don't need it this week, but starting next week, I'd say get in some Juventus players, and that's just not the Juventus fan in me talking. So that's why I have Shenzi in, not expecting necessarily a clean sheet this week, but hopefully going forward after this week. I jumped on the Singo train for Torino. He's been a great attacking defender this season. And Torino themselves have some decent fixtures in the next little while. They got Venezia this week, so that'll help cover some of the tougher fixtures that I have. They will be facing Juventus next week, and I'll probably just bench him for that game. And then you got Cagliari and Bologna. After Inter Milan, you got Genoa, Salernitana. So he's that player that I'm okay, and he might play on my bench most weeks. But he's definitely going to be an option aside from some big teams that they'll be playing. I brought in Kalulu, and he is someone that's been on my radar for a while. In fact, it was a fan that brought him up to me, and I wasn't really thinking about him till then, but makes total sense. A very cheap way to get into that AC Milan defense. Despite Romagnoli coming back, he has been playing game in, game out. And Milan also has a good run of fixtures coming up. Milan has Sampdoria, Salernitana, Udinese. The Napoli is a tough one. After that, you have Empoli, Cagliari, Bologna, Torino, and Genoa. So a long span of game weeks coming where you're going to be well taken care of with AC Milan players. I didn't end up going the Hernandez route, and this might kind of rule it out completely. As he did get a red card, so I definitely wouldn't have him for this week. And then I just wanted to put my money elsewhere. I'm going to have a really strong midfield coming up. And so I'm hoping that that will offset what I lose in not having Theo Hernandez. Another defender I'm bringing in is Patrick, another cheap way into a defense that's generally pretty strong. Got away from Hisai. Hisai didn't play last game. Saw some places where he wasn't going to be predicted to play this game. I wouldn't be surprised if he does. But Patrick has played a lot of games recently as a cheap way into the Lazio defense as well. Okay, now I'm trying to give some midfielders that have proven throughout the season that they are quality fantasy midfielders, the respect they deserve in picking up Çalhanoğlu and Milinkovic-Savic. both have been very strong throughout the season. Milinkovic, Savic very much as of late. And Çalhanoğlu, he had like a game suspension because of yellow card accumulation and stuff. But he has been good all year as well. I did go against one thing that I said that I wouldn't do anymore, but just with the way the fixtures are and the way he's been playing and the additions made, I have to bring Dybala back in the squad. I hope that I am not the reason that he keeps getting injured and he doesn't get injured against Atalanta here, knock on wood. But with Avlavic as an option, I can just see his assists going way up. Juve is going to have a much better attack. Yes, he may get rested sometimes. And that's just going to be the nature of having him in the squad. But I do think that there's a really high benefit to having Dybala in the team. Not Alejandro, what am I talking about? Rahim Diaz for AC Milan is another midfielder that I've brought in. I had him earlier in the season. He only lasted 1 week, so he got COVID right away or something like that. He is the highest fantasy scoring AC Milan midfielder. Ideally, I would have liked Leao to be a midfielder, but he's an attacker. But we'll get there in a sec. But I want 3 Milan players going forward. I almost flirted with the idea of having 2 defenders for Milan, but I just didn't. If I did, I would have wanted Theo Hernandez to be one of them. And just with that suspension, I just don't want a week where I'm not going to be able to count on a player. And lastly, the guy that I've been talking about a lot recently is Sergio Oliveira. Last game, I got really worried. He was taking all corners, all free kicks. And we know that he's on penalties at a price point of 5.6. He allows for money to be spent elsewhere. And I am counting on him to score some big points moving forward. So I had to get Oliveira in the team as well. In the forwards here, we got Avlavic. Obviously, I'm not getting rid of him anytime soon still, I don't think. I think he's a must-have in your squad still. Maybe not this week, but going forward, he will play huge in fantasy, I think. And Rafael Leao, I just didn't have the money to go to someone like Giroud. I don't know if I have faith in him to score game week in, game week out. Leao has been playing well again. He did have a bit of a lull, but he has been playing well again. And he allows me to put money elsewhere just due to his price point. So that's why I have Leao in there. Lazzarini, for the very sake, because he's the cheapest possible kind of keeper that I could get. Meru and Karsdorp still in good teams in the defense. Cheaper, they've also risen in price somewhat, so it's easier to not have to clear up money and potentially buy them back at some point. And I'm just happy with their options, both somewhat attacking as well. And Dzeko. I wanted to get Lautaro Martinez again, too expensive though, so I'm going to go with Dzeko with Inter's fixtures not being too shabby at all. After Napoli this week, they're going to have to swallow Genoa, Salernitana, Torino. So I'm also trying to keep Inter players on the radar as well. So I'm going to be heavily riding Juve, AC Milan, and Inter Milan players going forward, and we'll see what kind of transfers are made from there. Eventually, I might want to try to put more money elsewhere and switch Shenzi maybe back to a Provedel again or something like that. But right now, I think this looks like a really strong squad. I'm hoping that they don't fail me. This week, this is the squad that I'm looking at to start this week. It's really hard whether I want to start between Karsdorp or Çalhanoğlu. Facing Napoli, it could be tough, but I'm scared to miss out on possible Çalhanoğlu points. So that'll be a game time decision there. As well, it's really hard to sit Dzeko on the bench too, knowing that he could score in any game as well. But I think this is the way that I'm going to be going. Captain Milinkovic Savic against Bologna, a good fixture there. And he's been on a hot streak lately with vice captain Rafael Leao. Again, good fixture against Sampdoria. Some things that worry me are I don't have Immobile anymore. He is like questionable to play this week, which is part of the reason that I don't have him in the squad anymore. I may look to get him back in sometime down the road, maybe sacrificing some money in the midfield like a Dybala or a Çalhanoğlu sell and trying to get him back by selling Dzeko for Immobile. So that is definitely on my mind. It's just scary not having Immobile, and he literally scores like every single game. So it's tough not having him in the squad. Not having away to Theo Hernandez potentially could also play into things. The other thing that I'm kind of worried about is not having a lot of players that will end up having a double game week, I think. Right now, I only have 3 in Çalhanoğlu, Dzeko, and Singo. Torino and Inter are 2 teams that should have a double game week coming up at some point, and I will not have a shuffle now to prepare for it. Other teams though that I'm looking at, that like how many players are people really going to have on a double game week? People generally won't have Venezia players, won't have Salernitana players. Those are 2 teams. Won't have Udinese players really. That's another team that should have a double game week at some point. Fiorentina without Avlavic, like he was the main player that you'd want for that double game week. Maybe Barahi would have been one that you might have been looking at some point. Who else? Hellas Verona, I think, was one of the teams. Not really that enticing. The team that would be enticing would be Atalanta. So it's going to be weird not having Pasalic on my team anymore. He has those crazy games where he just racks up points. I'm hoping that doesn't come back to bite me. But where we do see a double game week, bring in like if they're healthy, Zapata or Muriel might be big, or a player like that. So if a double game week does present itself, I may do a double sub and take a 4-point hit to bring in 2 double game week players. But that has played on my mind that I'm not going to have necessarily a great amount of time to plan, and I won't have a shuffle for when that double game week gets announced. But other than that, that's my squad. I'm happy with it as of right now. It looks strong to me. Hoping that it keeps pushing me up the rankings and gets me higher in our own league and in the overall rankings as well. Because we didn't get to see the update last time, let's take a look at how the Forged and Fire League stands at the time being. As of right now, we have a pretty tight top 2 right now. Osama FC and Team Juve both towards the top, spread out by 16 points. So good job to both of you, the only 2 in our league in the 1300s. Not too far behind that, we have Galactico FC, and then myself and Fox show up not too long after that. So I'd say a top 5 definitely in the running right now. After that, we start dipping pretty far below. Some people that used to be near the top aren't really anymore. Ibra 11's dropped off huge. We have Football 15's dropped off, used to be near the top. And I don't know if anyone's dropped so much that they're on the second page now that used to be near the top. None of these players really, maybe the Untouchables I remember for a bit. But we still have a relatively competitive top 5 right now. We'll see what happens, and I'm hoping that this shuffle pays off. I'll obviously still have my double captain coming up, and I don't know when it's going to be used. Hopefully again in that double game week, but I will still have that chip. That is the last chip I have to use. Okay, other than that, going and explaining my top 5 for this week. I think Milinkovic-Savic has been on fire, has a good matchup against Bologna. I think he is a player that you could definitely bring in this week with a couple good fixtures to follow it. Vlahovic, with all these fixtures, I mean, the guy's just been hitting good fixtures all year and has been producing. I do not know how you don't have him in your squad. He was one of the most sold players 2 weeks ago, I think, and he was one of the most brought in this upcoming week. So I think people quickly realizing the mistake that they made by selling Vlahovic. Another player that I had as I should bring in was Oliveira for sure. He's number 3 on my list. All of these set pieces at a price point of 5.6 on a good team, you can't go wrong there. I think that is definitely a player that you should be thinking of bringing in. 4, maybe going to be an unpopular opinion here, but I think I have to go with Dybala. Now having Vlahovic to play with, that is going to be a lot more assists popping up as well. I think that would be a very good buy. Yes, injury prone. That's not surprising at all. I also think he like literally dropped in price a second before I bought him, which is why I have a little more money now. But that I just think makes the most sense for a player to buy. And Kalulu is going to be my last call. Cheap defender, good way into the Milan squad. And I'm not just doing it because it's my team bias. It makes sense that a lot of the top players to bring in right now would be my team because I have the ability to do that. So I hope you don't think that it's just too much my team bias. But if I didn't think they were a good player to bring in, I probably wouldn't bring them into the squad. So obviously it's my own opinion, but I think more often than not, it makes sense that a lot of players are coming from my team because I'm on a shuffle. So it makes sense that I'm bringing in the players that would be good to bring in this week. The only one, I guess, that I'm not bringing in right now, actually, no, all 5 of them are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I have all 5 of what I think are good players to bring in. And it honestly makes sense, or else it would be kind of silly for me to be using my shuffle and not bringing it back. Anyway, I hope you've liked this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know if you think I'm making a mistake by using my shuffle this week and if I should have saved it, or what other players you'd bring in instead. Take care. Hope you liked it. Have fun. And I'll see you in the review video.